And what is up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. I am Cass Hargis. That's Jason Dewey and Lance Lacoste. And welcome to the show. We're going to recap week 6 in the LHSAA football season. We're more than halfway through, so we got some clarity, we think, in some different areas. But first, I guess I know y'all had the Curtis Holy Cross game on Friday outside of the Saints losing today. Good weekend for the guys, yeah?
Football related, not great. Both my alma maters lost. The Saints lost. So I need a great show tonight. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Seeing you
That's
guys.
right.
Good show. I need a win tonight. Fantasy team isn't great right now either. So
yeah, I was saying it's been a great week of high school football. I can't speak to anything else because I watched the LSU game last night, and that team is like getting a triple root canal without anything to knock you out. But other than that,
if I can offer y'all the college team, Lance is not going to go for this at all. Jason, I think maybe we could swing you. The Southeastern Lions are pretty dang good. So
I like when I love watching FCS football. I don't mind. I know I said Lance has the problems. I told you, but I got a little bit of allegiance to Southeastern, so I don't mind the Lions.
Well, they play next week. Northwestern. It's our homecoming. So
we're gonna ruin it.
We'll see. Well, this weekend in Louisiana high school football, we'll go off the rails later on. We'll get back on topic here. But a couple of showdowns in District 2 5A. We had some big-time showdowns on the North Shore that maybe provided some clarity to us. We'll get into these games here later. But Prairieville, I don't even know if it's maybe the biggest win in their program's history. And then a travel snafu that we can talk about later on. But first, let's go to District 2 5A. We've talked about it all year. Maybe one of the two best districts in the state between that and 9-5A, also known as the Catholic League. But Alexandria travels to West Monroe. Ash comes in undefeated, the defending district champion. West Monroe under Coach Dodger this year is outside of a loss to North DeSoto, has been extremely impressive with just the stability and the consistency that he's brought to that program. An absolutely wild finish with a fumbled kickoff return, a field goal at the end to win it. West Monroe wins 34-31. I think we may have said this before, but I think against Catholic we said this, but I think this one may be even bigger. The biggest win in Coach Dodger's very short beginning of his career.
Yep, the Rebels are definitely back. Sounds like they're might be the favorite up there again, and so it's cool to see. Shout out to Jason sending us that link. I got to watch the last few minutes of this game, and it was unbelievable. Yes. And it came back to special teams again, and so Ash, they got aggressive on one of their last drives, which I don't really disagree with. They went to they tried to go up by 10 points instead of 7 points of running the clock. But long story short, Trez Davis is an absolute monster. He takes a screen 70 yards to the house. It was like everybody else was standing still, it looked like. It was just unbelievable. He had a huge night, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, 284 all-purpose yards, 3 total touchdowns. And so he was a monster. Special teams, there was a crazy kickoff return where it's hard to tell from the angle. The camera couldn't be any further from where the kickoff landed, but the returner for Ash, it is the last kickoff of the game, the returner for Ash feels the ball. It looks like his feet are in the end zone, but maybe the ball is outside the end zone, and so the referee let the play on. He fumbles. West Monroe, it leads to West Monroe basically kicking a winning field goal. Beyond that, the atmosphere just looked electric. Yeah. Trey Davis, when he scores a 70-yard touchdown, rare for a high school football program to have students sitting in the end zone. He runs to the student section in the end zone. Just a very unique setting, of course, up there at West Monroe. So anyway, long story short, it's really cool to see West Monroe back on top. Everybody knows the state's better when West Monroe is good.
Look, when I've talked about Trez Davis before, he's an absolute freak of nature at wide receiver. Guys, this is all 2 weeks after surgery. This is with a cast on. This guy is an absolute warrior, Tulane commit. I kind of come into question, are they going to be able to hold on to him? Again, I don't know. I'm not in the underworld of the goings and comings of recruiting, but this is a guy who was a 4-star recruit, and Tulane nabbed a really good player. He's a baller. He goes out and makes plays. But listen, guys, you have to go back to the possession before they scored that touchdown. It's late in the game, and the defense for West Monroe comes up with a big stop. They force the field goal. and that kind of set up the events that occurred at the tail end of that game. But what's ironic is when you go back to the preseason, I talked with Coach Deiser, and we had a conversation about special teams, and he said, look, special teams in this league is so important. We lost a ton of games last year because of missed extra points, because of missed field goals. And what happens early on in the game, they get a punt blocked, and it turns into 6 points for Alexandria, and that stings. But later on, you come up with a special teams play that goes in your favor. Like Lance said, maybe some question on whether or not he was in the end zone. Regardless, come up with a huge game-winning field goal at the end of the game. Just a really phenomenal football game. And this West Monroe team is really scary in that Division I non-select bracket. This is the team we're going to be talking about, I think, going into Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned Coach Dowser he has a special teams background, strength and conditioning background. So you shore that up. You get big time plays from Trez Davis, who you mentioned he had surgery 2 weeks ago. He played before the surgery with the cast as well. And I think he made a catch. I think it was in the Pulaski game. So he not only is a really good player, but he's tough as nails as well. And, you mentioned special teams swinging momentum. Ash, it was 2 turnovers. You fumble the kickoff and you fumble early in the game when you're playing really good teams. And this is nothing that Coach Bachman and those guys don't know, but when you're playing good teams, that's the kind of that's the margins that you need to win in to win those types of ball games. And Ash is going to be there at the end. I don't think this game again. This is two really good teams that played a really good football game. And I think the only sad part about this is that they can't meet again in the playoffs with Ash going. Select this would be a really cool matchup to see again later on in the playoffs. Also in District 2 5A, Ouachita Parish. We talked about these guys on Tuesday in the stats that they've put up behind quarterback Montrell Connor, that they've been unbelievable. They haven't turned the ball over. Then they run into Ruston. Ruston gets a huge win, 21-14 at home. This is Ruston's first game against an in-state opponent in 4 weeks. Their big-time tight end, Ahmad Hudson, 7 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, he's an absolute unit to have as a weapon. It's almost unfair that they have them on his team. But I think when you think Ruston football, the quote that maybe personifies what Ruston wants to be is what Coach Boss said, is talking about their running game. It's like chopping a tree with an axe. It's rough early, but you stay with it and it paid off. That's like Ruston. When you think of Ruston, that is that big, tough, physical. They're going to continue to run it at you, and you're going to wear down. And it kind of seems It seems like what happened Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, competition's getting stiffer. Scores are getting a little lower. It looks like this reminds you almost of like a Catholic League game. The flow of this game, very low scoring. And what does it come down to? A big special teams play early on, block punt return for a touchdown. Really ends up being it was early in the game, but ends up being the difference in the game when you only lose by 7 points. And so, this district is similar to the Catholic League down here in New Orleans. It feels like you've got to play a super clean game. You got to play great defense. You got to be able to run the football, and you got to be great on special teams. Every little mistake could cost you the game.
Yeah, big receiver, tight end Ahmad Hudson was back after injury in this game. 7 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown grab. He's such a difference maker when he's on the field with this team, right? And you also have Dalen Powell in the backfield, who had a tremendous game rushing the football, near the end of the game, intercepting the ball while Ouachita Parish is driving the football in the red zone to kind of shore up that win. Ouachita Parish is a team we kind of mentioned earlier this week, or on Tuesday, I should say, that they might have been flying under the radar a bit. And everybody knows that they have talent. Everybody's kind of been saying when they put it together, they're going to be really dangerous. And while coaches hate the term moral victory, you hate to look at things as, well, at least we put up a good fight. This is an impressive outing for Ouachita Parish. They would have much rather take home the win. However, if you're going to win the state title, you're going to have to go through Ruston again at some point.
Yeah,
is the feel of Division I non-select. There's a handful of teams that really feel like they're in that conversation, and the problem is a lot of them are playing in this district. So that's the problem. Like, you're going to go through the season, and you might see a team beat one another, and guess what? It's a lot tougher to beat a team a second time around. So it'll be fascinating to see if these teams do show up again in the future. But Ouachita Parish is a team that you're going to want to keep your eye on if you're looking forward in the season.
Yeah, no, and you said it, Jason. You don't want to talk about moral victories. No, I wish they would just do away with that term. No one wants them. But coming into the game, Ouachita Parish, their non-district schedule wasn't the greatest. They did dominate a good Franklin Parish team, but outside of that, they did what they were supposed to do. Like, this was their first real test. Yes, they lost the game, but they had the football going in to score to tie or even win it if they want to go for two, and against one of the maybe top 5 teams in any classification in the state. So you could take something away from that if you Ouachita Parish. The life of being in District 2 5A is that you turn around next week and Ouachita Parish plays West Monroe. So they're going to get right back. They're getting right back at it next week. But it's a team that up to this point we would expect to continue to play well and be in it and have a chance to win some games late in the season.
Do you know if that game is home? Is that home for Ouachita Parish?
That game is at – I just had it pulled up. It is at West Monroe.
It seems like West Monroe has been getting all these big games at home too. When they played Catholic, it was at home.
Yep.
And Ouachita Parish. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah, that's what I meant. So be interesting to see that.
They get Neville at home. Well, they gotta sell season tickets, sell that thing out. They got to get all the home games they can get.
It looked pretty dang full on the stream.
Yeah,
there was a lot of people. It was loud.
I'm telling you, man. That Lance said the state's better when they're good. When that place is rocking, there's not many places in the country that could be as intimidating for a visiting team or as fun to watch a football game at than West Monroe. So that next week will be fun. It's 2 parish rivals as well. So when they get together, it's always going to be a battle. Down in the New Orleans metro area on the West Bank, Shaw hosted St. James. Shaw wins 24-20. And for this Shaw team, outside of their game with Carr and outside their game with Rummel, they have been extremely impressive. St. James comes into the game. They get a crazy win over St. Charles on the last play of the game. They travel to Shaw. Just a good football game, I think, with 2 teams that athletes on this field were everywhere. The skilled players that were played in this game on the West Bank were everywhere. It's 2 teams that are going to play deep into the playoffs. I think, again, Shaw coming off that state championship finally feels like they kind of got some stuff figured out. St. James, again, the schedule for St. James has been crazy what they're doing, and they're showing themselves really well. But, again, another good football game between 2 good teams.
I thought, the theme of this whole week was the battle-tested teams really prevailed this week. And so that doesn't really pertain necessarily to St. James. St. James has played a really tough schedule. But not to brag, I definitely picked this one. I saw Shaw winning this game. And that's just really a huge credit to Coach Adam Giglio, the defense coordinator at Shaw. I knew he'd come out and have a great game plan. I think the quarterback, Alan Shaw, for Shaw, and their running back, DeAndre Franklin, are getting better and better every single week. Yep. And it certainly helps when – imagine St. James, as good as St. James is actually one of Shaw's, weakest opponents they've seen so far. And so, you just think about how that helps, the young quarterback, Alan Shaw, just develop from week to week. And so I'm happy for those guys. The other thought on that, of course, is St. James had such an emotional walk-off win the week before. It's really tough to get these 16-year-olds to – just back level and prepare for another tough opponent after such a crucial win just the previous week. So so I thought it was all along. I thought this one had the makings of a solid win for Shaw.
You're going to be able to print a T-shirt at the end of the season, hearing this so many times. But after your highest high comes your lowest low. It was a very emotional win at home for St. James just a week ago against St. Charles. It's a rivalry. It's a River Parish rivalry. It might not be one of the ones that are highlighted as much, but the adrenaline rush of that week, and it's you're going to Shaw to play a football game. And Shaw, after taking 2 tough losses earlier in the year, it feels like maybe some people are like, they're taking a bit of a dip. But I think after you beat LCA, forcing 7 turnovers, you come take on the St. James team and beat them They let St. James come back in this game, but still finding a way to close out the game and beat a really talented St. James team. Jackson still got his pair. Juwan Jackson still got his pair of touchdowns. Jaden Villanova got a pair of touchdowns as well for St. James. But this is what stands out is St. James went down 14-0 in that St. Charles game.
Yeah.
They had to score a touchdown at the end of that first half and come back. They were down 21-0 against Shaw in this game. So I think eventually when you continue to dig yourself into holes early on in the game, it can come back and bite you, and it clearly did in this case. But if you play the transitive property game, then Shaw in theory should beat St. Charles later on. But that really has me excited about. There's some really fun games to watch in that matchup. You're going to have Belchase, Shaw, and St. Charles battling each other. Belchase, the team we've talked briefly about earlier in the year, still unbeaten, and St. Charles still a really good football team too. So I'm really interested to see how they move forward with a few tough games at the tail end of their schedule. Yeah,
that district, it's not big, but it's sneaky. I had to say sneaky good with St. Charles and Shaw, but when you throw Belchase into that mix, it's tough. It's tough, and what especially with St. Charles and Shaw have done in a non-district schedule, that's not easy. That's not an easy 10 weeks for those two teams. Also down in the New Orleans area, or over here in the New Orleans area, you had a big district matchup between Lakeshore and Franklinton. Before we get into the game, I would like to say if you have not watched our Tuesday episode with Mike McMillan from North Shore Prep Report, he previewed this game as well as others, but he's been awesome, great to us. So go check out his stuff and go see what he had to say about this one. But Lakeshore wins it 41-37 behind their quarterback, Brady Loudermilk. This guy's had an unbelievable season. Just in this game, he rushed for 196 yards on 35 carries with Coach Brent Indes's Veer offense that's coming right at you. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. Really, it was a game of runs. Lakeshore runs up. They get a 20-point lead. Franklinton battles back. The total yards in this game was completely opposite. Lakeshore has 396 total yards. They rushed for 328 and only throw for 68. Franklinton threw for 290 yards. Just couldn't get anything sustained. There was another turnover that led to some points, a fumble recovery by Lakeshore. They took it 94 yards for a touchdown to go up 27-7. But we knew Franklinton was beat up kind of coming into this game, and so was Lakeshore. But Lakeshore just kind of physically seems like they kind of put it on Franklinton.
Best quote of the night, Coach Indes said, "When you don't punt, it's hard to lose." So they scored on scored touchdowns on 6 of 8 drives. It's pretty efficient offense there, and that's all. Like you said, a lot of milk. He's been unbelievable. He's such a big, physical-looking runner when I'm watching his highlights, and so it's really strange to see a Coach Salt defense give up that many points. So it makes me wonder at least about maybe they're a little beat up on that defensive side, like we talked about coming in. On a positive note, I think seeing Jacob Crane throw for that many yards is a really positive note. He was one of the main injuries coming into the game, so to see him throw for nearly 300 yards says that he might be a little banged up, but he's tough enough to figure out a way to still put up a ton of yards. And so, the biggest takeaway, I think, Franklinton, this is going to be the team that if they finish the season strong, they're going to be that dangerous 14 seed that nobody wants to see in the playoffs, right? And so it's really weird to see them 3-3, but they're going to be the team. Last year was Cecilia. This year it might be Franklinton that gets in one of those mid-tier seeds and shocks everybody.
For the record, it might be Cecilia again, who I believe is 2-4 on the season. Like, that's something to keep an eye out on too. They have a brutal beginning of the schedule. But staying on this game, when you look at Lakeshore, they came into this game beaten up. Both teams kind of had some guys that were kind of banged up, but starting running back for Lakeshore was banged up. Starting receiver, number 1 receiver, banged up. So for them to come out and still realize like what we're kind of playing with one-dimensional football, and to still to beat a quality Franklinton team like this, it speaks to the job that Coach Indes and the staff have done. There's a Lakeshore team that we talked a lot about on last Tuesday, and how this is a team that, again, who can make a run, who's definitely in that conversation in their bracket, and this is kind of a statement win for them. You got to kind of throw away the numbers with a lot of these teams. I think Franklinton is one of those. You see 3-3 next to their name. I don't really put a ton of validity to that. They're a well-coached football team. They're a quality football team, have a lot of weapons on offense and still to come out and run the football like you wanted to, down some players. I'm really impressed with this win by Lakeshore.
No, it is. That is extremely impressive, considering the amount of injuries that both teams had, like we said, but especially on that Lakeshore team. And those two have kind of, the last 2 years kind of separated themselves from the pack in that district. So it looks like maybe Lakeshore takes the upper hand, but you don't want to see Franklinton in the playoffs. That's for sure, especially if they can get healthy. Back up in North Louisiana, we'll go up to District 1-5A, where we've got Evangel and Captain Shreve. Evangel wins 71-25. And I think the story of the game, outside of the Evangel offense, Captain Shreve's running back, Jamaica Plater, rushed for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was in the first quarter. He did that in the first. He left in the second quarter due to injury, and they couldn't.
He did
come back. Yeah, he did come back.
He did come back, but it was
5 carries for 150 yards.
Yeah.
Because Jason did the math for us. That was 30 yards a carry.
Cass did the math. I'm not the math guy.
30 yards a carry. Yes, but 5 carries, 150 yards in the first quarter. He briefly came out. He did return, and that's when Evangel kind of took off from there. I think the most important, we were talking before we came on here, Peyton Houston, it goes without saying how good he is as the trigger man and for that quarterback in that offense. He threw for 175 and had 4 passing touchdowns. They had 2 guys rush for almost 100 yards. Damari Drake rushed for 96 with 2 touchdowns, and Keontae Mims had 91 yards for a touchdown. If they can get their running game going along with Peyton Houston and what he's able to do in the air, it's going to be a tough offense to slow down. Yeah,
it seems like this Evangel team just loaded all over the place, especially on the offensive skill side, just looking through the numbers. But, it's shocking even to see, the quote from the head coach at Captain Shreve after the game. He even talked about how his team's energy and the wind was taken out of their sails when they lost their player, and so obviously I'm sure it's a big learning moment for that Captain Shreve team. You can't have one player coming out of the game can't completely change the way you approach the football game. So 49 unanswered points for Evangel is pretty unbelievable. Went from a close game to a blowout really quick.
Looking at this Captain Shreve team, what you have to keep in mind is my understanding is that they thought they had their offense in place, and my understanding is their quarterback transfers.
That's right.
2 weeks before the season starts.
It was the scrimmage week. I think it was scrimmage week. It
was again right near the beginning of the season. So it feels like they kind of had to figure that out, and their passing game maybe isn't where they thought it might be against certain teams. But Plater is an incredible back. Again, proven by his numbers. He's the all-time leading school rushing record. He holds his all-time rushing record in the school. Again, one of the most fun highlight reels you can watch in the state of Louisiana. Damari Drake is the guy for Evangel, though. He plays running back, and he ran for 89 yards. He's a physical runner. And when you turn on the tape and you watch him play the other side of the football, man, he can play some linebacker. He's a freight train playing that position. So, but another guy as well, Charlie Abraham, big time receiver. When you talk Pop Houston, everybody thinks it's all him. And to his look, he's an incredible player, but you have to throw to somebody. And his receivers, he has a loaded wide receiver room as well. And I do think Abraham is one of those guys that's a game he can go make plays. So I think when you look at moving forward, can Evangel continue to have defensive efforts like this? And that's going to be the question, because that we already know, guys, 1-5A loves their offense. And if you are going to make a run in Division I select, you have to be sound on both sides of the football. So maybe they're finding their footing against Captain Shreve, and we'll see moving forward against a very prolific offensive league.
Yeah, and you can look at they scored 71 points, and the defense kind of gets lost in that shuffle, and rightfully so. They're the only second team to hold Captain Shreve under 40 points. The other was Washington Paris in week 1. They held them to 25. No matter how long Plater was out, that's saying something. So that's going to be interesting. On Captain Shreve's end, you got Destrehan next week. Their non-district, game, their last non-district game is Destrehan. They get them at home, so Destrehan's got to make that long trip. But Shreve better, they need to get healthy, and they got to kind of get some things going with that passing game. They have Destrehan and Parkway the next 2 weeks, and that can be tough to slow both of those teams down.
Guess what? Destrehan has just as powerful of an offense as Evangel. I mean, you have a ton of receivers there, and you got Jabari Mack, you got Fields at quarterback, so that'll be fun to see them try to stop that offense. Yes,
it will, and it'll be. We can say that because we don't have to try to stop that offense. That's not our job. Another game that we talked about, this one lived up to the billing. This seemed like a great football game, but St. Charles and Terrebonne. St. Charles wins 31-28. They had a 31-13 lead in the fourth quarter. Terrebonne makes a huge comeback. Again, this is the year of the onside kick. They recover 2 onside kicks. They get the ball last, and they miss a field goal to tie it. St. Charles with a big 3-point victory. Skylar Edwards for St. Charles, he might be one of my favorite players in the area. He has 4 total touchdowns, 3 rushing, 1 receiving, and in typical St. Charles fashion, they have 2 interceptions, and they make a field goal. Special teams and defense, again, show up big for Coach Wayne Stein's comments.
This was one of my favorite, if not my favorite matchup of the week. St. Charles Catholic, a team that I got to see in the playoffs last year. I knew that they were bringing back some really good players. You said it, Skylar Edwards, he was great last year. He's even better this year, doing everything, 205 total yards. Landry LeBlanc, he's just a winner, it seems like, and we watched him get better game after game last year, and then this year he's just been super efficient, 10 of 13 passing for a touchdown, no interceptions. That kind of feels like the biggest difference in this game was the turnover battle. Like you said, 2 interceptions on that St. Charles Catholic defensive side, huge down the stretch. Quincy Adams, I feel like every time I see him on TV, he gets bigger. It looks like he was even lined up at quarterback a little bit this week too, and so that kid is unbelievable. But it seems like just the last 2 weeks, Terrebonne, they've turned it over just a couple too many times, and as the competition continues to get tougher this time of the year, it's the little things. It's just the missed field goal, it's the turnovers, and so that's the difference in a 3-point win.
When talking about this game, I mentioned St. Charles was going to try to stop the run. They were going to try to stop Quincy Adams. Guys, he still went for $170.
Yeah,
he still had a heck of a game. And I said they're going to challenge the quarterback. They're going to challenge Owen Oliver to pass the football. He still threw for 211 yards. The big difference is those 2 interceptions. Mm-hmm. You can get all the yards in the world, but it's empty yards if they don't turn into points. And that's what St. Charles has done all year. They kind of have to hold on and survive. Not something you're typically going to see from a St. Charles team is not 1, but 2 onside kicks recovered. I'm sure Coach Stein is not thrilled about that, and they will be working even more so on that this week. But really just an impressive offensive performance from Skylar Edward. And to credit the offense, that offensive line. Terrebonne's a big team. They have a big group of offensive and defensive linemen. So to hold up to a group of players of that size kind of speaks to the job that this offensive line of St. Charles has done, which is completely understated when you're talking about Landry LeBlanc, who's had a really nice season at quarterback and running a lot more this year, and the job that Edwards has done in the backfield. It's really impressive that this offensive line was able to hold up to give this offense the push they needed to keep the offense on the field and score 31 points.
Yeah, that's the most impressive part, and we say that, and it happens all the time with this team and Coach Wayne Stein. And yes, they'll go play bigger 5A programs, and that doesn't necessarily mean that those teams are better, but there's more players. Typically, they're physically bigger, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to St. Charles. They're able to scheme up enough to give themselves a chance, and their players play hard and physical, and they just keep playing, and they expect to win. That's an extremely impressive win for that common team, especially when you consider what happened to them last week with St. James.
Do you know who they play next week?
I don't. Who they got?
Legacy
They
School
got
of
Texas.
Sports
That's right.
Science. So that'll be, for those who don't know, that's the team that went out and played St. Aug earlier in the year and put up 40-something points, 5-star
Yep.
quarterback on that team. So that might be a game that we talk about on Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they don't back down. They don't back down for sure. And on Terrebonne's end, it's just one or two plays. It's the turnovers. It's the one or two plays that get busted for whatever reason. And if they can clean that up, it's a team that can be dangerous later in the year. In the Catholic League, we had this is the game you two called Curtis and Holy Cross. Curtis wins 21-13. This just seemed like, and I'll let y'all go, but it just seemed like this was a game where Holy Cross obviously had to play really well to win, and they had their chance to do it, and they just weren't able to capitalize. One, maybe in a few weeks they might be kicking themselves in the butt for not figuring out a way to win, but that's kind of life in the Catholic League. We mentioned 2-5A. In this league, it's the same. It's week in and week out. And you can make the comparison to these two districts, obviously not on a talent or competition level. It's like the NFL. The talent level between the teams are very similar. The coaching between the two teams are very similar. It's going to come down to one or two plays every week. And if you make them, you win. And if you don't make them, you lose. It's kind of what happened to Holy Cross here.
Yeah, I think in the Catholic League, you said it often comes down to the turnover battle. It often comes down to a special teams play,
Yep.
And that's how this one went. I thought on the John Curtis side, London Pageant, I thought he did everything he needed to do to win the game. Like he didn't do a ton, but the quarterback for Curtis, he made all the right reads in the Veer game. He didn't make a lot of throws, but the throws that he needed to make, he made them. He didn't turn the ball over. And so in the end, they just played a very clean offensive game, probably not the best offensive game that Curtis has ever played, but that had a lot to do with the Holy Cross defensive front. The Holy Cross defensive front, I mean, they played fantastic. They only gave up one touchdown really the whole game. And so, it was Max Landry, Cole Todd, all those guys up front. They really were super physical. I think the Holy Cross defensive coaches, I would have to think, are very, very proud of the way their guys played. But in the end, it was – you look back at early on in the game, Curtis is punting way backed up at their own 10-yard line. Holy Cross jumps off sides, gives Curtis a first down. Curtis ends up going down and scoring. It was really the only really long touchdown drive that Curtis had the whole night. But he had that play, and then Holy Cross scores to really tie the game up at 14, except they don't get the 14 because they let somebody through the A gap and they get the extra point blocked, and it's 14-13. And then from there, out of desperation, Holy Cross throws a late pick six, but turns it into 21-13. And so, again, it really just goes back to, a couple special teams plays, a couple turnovers from Holy Cross, and that ends up being an 8-point loss for the Holy Cross faithful like myself. Is tough just because, it almost is the exact same as the previous week versus Jesuit, where you look at just a couple of plays where it could have been a different game and you lose by 8 points, And so, but that's what it is. That's the Catholic League for you. It's a very, very slim margin of error, and it's those little plays that are the difference in winning and losing.
What was so interesting about this game, when you go back to the first half, Lance talked about it. They had a 3-and-out the first drive. And the second drive, Holy Cross comes back with another 3-and-out. And we're kind of looking at each other like the defense is showing up. That offside penalty completely changed the complexion of the game. They drive the ball for another 6 or 7 minutes. Holy Cross had the ball 3 times in the first half. And it felt like they ended up completing a huge pass between Faria and Talon Meyer. And that ended up setting up another touchdown pass between them. But really, they had to make the best out of very limited opportunities. And it felt like the offense had some success. And it felt like the defense was successful. But we talk about it all the time with John Curtis. It's death by a million paper cuts. You can do everything that you're supposed to do, or you feel like, man, that was a good play for us, and you gave up 3 yards. And you're like, okay, that's fine. But the next play, they come back with 4 yards. The next play, they come back with 5 yards. So I will say I felt like Holy Cross played extremely sound on defense. And at times, it felt like they made Curtis uncomfortable. And just based off the fact that London Pageant had only thrown 17 passes to our stats coming into that game, and it seemed like he passed the ball a lot compared to what he had on the season total. So, unfortunately for Holy Cross, as the game tailed on, Curtis continued to hold on to the football, and that's what they do. They're going to beat you by running the football, holding on to the clock, and continuing to milk away that time. Holy Cross defense stepped up and did what they needed to do. But unfortunately, it feels like one penalty really came back to bite them. But to Curtis's credit, they just find a way to win. Doesn't matter how they do it. If it's going to take a 50-yard interception for a touchdown by Jules Tapp, then so be it. If it's going to take them blocking a PAT, that's what they're going to do. They just find ways to win football games. And that's what makes them so dangerous. They don't have to beat teams by 20 points or 30 points. It's not the style of play that they play. It sometimes comes as a product of teams not covering them correctly defensively. But, again, Curtis is continuing to be consistent and find ways to win football.
Yeah, I was going to say, even in a low-scoring game, that the offensive stars for both teams still showed up. Jacoby Boudreaux still had 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving touchdown. I was on a screen play, and then Kieran Smith ran like a man possessed. He was unbelievable. He ran for 20 carries, 117 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, it was like every time he would get hit at the line of scrimmage and somehow pick up 5 or 6 yards. It was crazy. And then just to add to even Coach JT Curtis. He said Holy Cross came out and played really, really well physically. It was a game that could have gone either way, which is how it feels like it goes in the Catholic League.
Yeah, and that's really the second year in a row that it's happened all across. Defensively, Coach Tommy Connors and that defensive staff have done a great job with this Curtis offense. And 2 years in a row, they have nothing to show for it. And, if you would have told Coach Watney, hey, Kieran Smith's going to rush for 117, London Padgett's going to throw the ball 13 times, and Jacoby Boudreaux won't get 100 yards, he'd probably say, "We'll take it, and you still don't get the win. It's got to be frustrating. But again, that's life. It's life in the district, and Curtis program, they just know how to win, and they're going to find ways to do it. So we go from a 21-13 defensive struggle. I guess defensive struggle would be the way to put this game here. It's a Parkway and Airline, 48-43, and we'll get into it. I'll be honest with you. I thought this game would be more high scoring. When you're looking at the two offenses coming in, I thought we'd see both teams hit 50. Parkway stays undefeated. That's Airline's 3rd straight loss. The Airline last year, they win 10 games. They come in this year, they win their first 3. They've now lost 3 in a row. Parkway, again, and we've talked about Parkway before, extremely impressive 6-0. That offensively, obviously, they've done a really good job. Quarterback Caleb Williams throws for 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. They score with less than a minute left to win the game. This was a fun game to watch. This game actually took place on Thursday night. This is a good one to watch. They had Gary Burney for Parkway had 5 catches for 144 yards. So Kenny Darby, our guy from Airline, 11 carries, 94 yards, also had 10 catches for 87 yards. That guy is unbelievable for that Airline offense. I know we were talking before we came on about the onside kick that happened at the end, but just a fun back-and-forth game. This is kind of the prototypical Catholic League game was what we talked about, Curtis and Holy Cross. This is the prototypical District 1 5A game.
Both equally fun to watch, I might add.
Yeah.
And again, we're laughing and joking, but I dead serious. Yeah. But we were all texting during the game.
We were watching.
Man, this is a fun game to watch. Lance, I'm gonna let you go first on this.
I was just saying, good note. Parkway's defense comes up in the clutch, and I mean that is what it comes down to at times. You gotta get a stop when it matters most, and so it sounds like Parkway's defense was the last unit out there on the field and came through getting a big stop. Other than that, I'd love to hear more about the onside kick. Jason can kind of go on about that.
Yeah, so it's again when we're talking about these types of situations. Again, I'm not trying to hammer home officials or points, but the bottom line is the 50-yard line is not painted on Parkway's field. Now, I'm not saying it did or didn't happen. I'm saying it would have been mighty close if there was a line down the 50-yard line. If they recovered it, it looked to me like that Airline recovered an onside kick, which gave Parkway the ball in the short field. But again, it wasn't called that way. So unfortunately, you can't play the shoulda, coulda, woulda game. if you want to go back and look, the truth is Parkway had opportunities earlier in the game. They got held in the red zone their first drive.
Twice, right?
There was twice,
yeah.
2 times. But you're talking about Bernie. He's a heck of a player. He's a really solid receiver. He's only a junior, by the way, 6'3". The guy's kind of come onto the scene this year in this, really impressive Parkway offense. Another shout out to Peyton Rayner, who picks off a pass, goes for a touchdown. And what I loved is on the broadcast, he gives his mom a hug, who's sitting in the end zone. It was an awesome thing to see. But the Parkway defense, they gave up 43 points, but they stepped up when they needed to and made plays. And they make big plays. Like they'll pick off a pass and go for 6. They'll scoop and score on a fumble. So it's not quite what you would call a defensive game in the Catholic League, but to their credit, like their defense has stepped up when they needed to. And this was Parkway's biggest test of the year. This was their biggest game of the year. And Airline is another team, and it's going to kind of be our mantra at this point. It's very tough for me to look at that Airline 3-3 and say that's about right, because they're a really impressive football team. They got a junior at quarterback in Williams, who has really looked impressive up to this point in the season. We talk about Kenny Darby at wide receiver, who also slips into the backfield at times and make plays. This is a really good football team, a very impressive offense. And when you're talking about teams kind of sliding to that middle of the pack and really being a team you don't want to see show up, Airline's going to be one of them. And it's not what they want to see after going 10-0 last year, but I do think they are going to have a real great opportunity moving forward to win some football games. And again, find a spot in the bracket that might fit them better than if they were at the top 4. Or you just never know.
No, you don't. That's the thing. And we don't want to project too far ahead, but it's about matchups in the regular season, and it's especially about matchups when you get down into the playoffs. Also, over here on the North Shore, we had a big District 6-5A. It's a district opener for both teams. Covington hosts Mandeville. Mandeville wins 26-9 behind freshman quarterback Crew Calora. 15 of 22, throws for 3 touchdowns, 200 yards. Luke DeMello goes 4 catches, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns, takes a bubble screen, 44 yards for a touchdown. Mandeville seems like they're getting better every week, and I think that's a product of they're playing a 14-year-old quarterback that started in week 2 after an injury. He's gotten better. This Mandeville team and Coach Jones, those guys have done a good job of coaching them and getting them better. And I know both teams are now 4-2. It just kind of feels like on Covington's end, they just quite can't figure it out offensively, and they can't put it all together and play some complementary football. I think this Covington team is good. They beat Franklinton. They've got some good wins, but it just seems like they're kind of they're searching right now, and they can't quite figure it out.
So this was probably the most stunning game of the weekend. I think all of us, including even Mike, would have thought that Covington would win this football game at home. On paper, they look like they're a better team. With that said, I talked to let's call him a Mandeville High insider, who said that when he talked to the players and the coaches of Mandeville, they were super confident going into this game. In no way were they surprised that they won this football game. And so, and I think that speaks to Coach Jones, head coach at Mandeville, the confidence he instills in his players. I know his coaching staff is unbelievable. It's a group of guys that love working together. And so, you can't overstate the importance of just culture from the coaching staff to the players, the confidence they instill in these kids. And, when they got to it Friday night, these guys simply believed that they could win, and they went and did it. And so, that even goes further to a kid like Crew Calora, a freshman, who he's not supposed to be playing on varsity football right now, but he's doing it and he believes in himself. And, these coaches have put together a great game plan for him to be successful. And so, watching him on film, he's a little undersized right now because he's 14 years old. But, man, he's starting the football around with a lot of confidence. Sam, you already mentioned it, but Luke DeMello, he certainly helped out his young quarterback. These touchdown catches he had, a 39-yard touchdown and a 44-yard touchdown. These were balls that he caught around 10 yards, and his speed, he just ran away from the Covington defense. So the yards after the catch were a huge factor, always the quarterback's best friend. And so heck of a win for Mandeville. It seems like they are, back on top in that district. It's going to be them in St. Paul's again, it looks like.
What really impresses me with this Mandeville team is what I harped on coming into this game was Covington's defensive front is a really solid group of players. And for them to allow the freshmen enough time to get comfortable, 200 yards passing. Kalora has really been impressive as a freshman, as you guys have said. But when you also look, Marquise Zenon, who is a two-time all-district player, had a few sacks in this game for Mandeville. And he's been a really impressive player as well for this Mandeville football team. I think this is good. This is a big win for this team. And again, starting out district play 1-0 is never a bad thing. Never a bad place to be. So moving forward, the big question is how can Covington kind of move forward from this? Brock Keup only had one catch in this game, which is a bit surprising. Guys, I'm really high on this kid. I know he's a Texas State commit. So, again, have to credit Mandeville's defense for limiting what he was going to be able to do in this game and making plays. These are two teams that I remember even when I was in high school, I'd always have it circled to kind of see what happens. This is one of those, backyard games. Just kind of think it's going to be really fun to watch and a big one. And, again, Mandeville comes out on top of this one. And moving forward, I think this is going to instill a lot of confidence. When you have a freshman at quarterback who's, again, one of their losses was his first start at Madison Prep. I mean, it's not an easy place to play. It's not an easy team to play against. So going to be where they are right now. It feels like they're ahead of schedule considering they lost a 3-year starter at quarterback to start the season.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a testament to, like you said, Coach Jones and that staff. They won and took Lakeshore to the Superdome early on in the school's existence, and they've done a tremendous job at Mandeville making deep runs in the playoffs. And that's a staff that they just know how to win, and that's what they do, and that's what they're doing now. Even with a freshman at quarterback, so that'd be one to follow. But again, if you're Covington, you just got to figure out some consistency on offense. You've got the players on defense, and you got the wide receiver. Just trying to find a way to get him the football to see what they can do. We can stay in that district. I know we're going to start bouncing around from games around the state quickly, but we can stay in that district. We'll go Hammond and St. Paul's. St. Paul's, we circled this for Hammond coming in. They were 4-1. They were at the same point last year, trying to get over that hump. They go to St. Paul's last year. They lose 3 in a row. They go to St. Paul's this year. St. Paul's wins 41-12. This is kind of St. Paul's. Looks like they're just kind of flexing their muscles, saying, hey, the district still runs through us. You can do whatever you want leading up to it, but you still got to come through us. Cody Corrales had 165 yards and 4 touchdowns for St. Paul's. He's had a tremendous season. I think he's committed to Nichols, or at least he's been offered by Nichols. Really good running back for them behind a really good offensive line for St. Paul's, but just a dominating game for the Wolves.
Yeah, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but this felt like the week where some of those pretty records got really put to the test. Yep. And the more battle-tested teams really prevailed and, like you said, flexed their muscles a little bit. St. Paul's has played nothing but unbelievable competition. Hammond is most likely the weakest opponent they've played. And so for the St. Paul's team, this was expected. I mean, you even heard the confidence. I think our North Shore expert, Mike McMillan, on the last episode, he was kind of respectfully predicting exactly this to happen. And so, the St. Paul's team, it's really not surprising. Throw the records out the window at this point in the season. It's who's healthiest. It's who's most battle tested, and so, great win by St. Paul's. Again, it looks like it's going to be another collision course for St. Paul's and Mandeville in that district.
Yep.
Again, this isn't the end of Hammond's season by any means either. I think this is a team, this has been their toughest test of the season. They had a rough game. Again, I think this is a team that'll bounce back in their district. Let's call a spade a spade. The North Shore, we've talked about it. Like, you don't know who the top team is. Like, you don't know, because another game to mention as well, Salmon drops a game to North Shore. North Shore has 2 wins on the season. They win 31-28 with a late touchdown in that game. They've had a really impressive running game by their running back. I'm dropping his name at the moment. Ramon Jones, I believe it is. I'll find it in a second. But this is an area where you don't know what you're going to get week in and week out. And I think that's because the competition is so close. The stakes are so high on a week-to-week basis, and you just don't know what to expect on a given week.
No, you're right. You don't know. You have teams like North Shore and Salmon, upsetting people, playing tight games, and then you have this one thrown into, coming in. I think we thought Covington maybe would be, at least in the 5A North Shore group in both of those districts, Covington would maybe be the best team around. And here's Mandeville saying, hey, don't forget about us. So there they are. So it is going to be very interesting to keep an eye on the district races in those two North Shore districts leading into the end of the season. Out in Lafayette, speaking of district races, LCA plays their first game. This is week 6, by the way. Their first game against a school in their division or class, and it happens to be the school right across the street, Lafayette Renaissance, and they win 48-7. It seems as though whatever happened to LCA on the bus to Shaw is done. They went to Shaw, committed 7 turnovers, and ever since then, they've done nothing but score. They had 4 offensive touchdowns, 2 defensive touchdowns, and a special teams touchdown. That is a recipe for a big victory, and that's exactly what happened on Friday night in Lafayette.
Seems like the exact same theme, right? I mean, this is Lafayette Christian was 4-1 coming in. Lafayette Renaissance was 5-0 coming in. There's a reason why we've talked about LCA on every single episode.
Yep.
And we have not mentioned Lafayette Renaissance once because LCA has played an unbelievable schedule. They've truly seen the best of the best in this state. And now here they are back in their, smaller division and just they're going to punish people, I think, the rest of the season. I looked at their schedule. There's a good chance this LCA team, they might not lose again. And so, this is surprising that it went this direction, that it was this big of a margin of victory. I did not see that coming, but it's certainly not surprising to see Braylon Walker put up these kind of numbers and LCA get a big win.
This is a good Lafayette Renaissance football team, but when your average opponent is a 5A opponent or, a 4.5, if you will, for Lafayette Christian, it seems like that's what they played, nothing but 4A and 5A. And again, like elite teams, Shaw, Rummel, like they're playing really good football teams and just find ways to win. So Lafayette Christian is a team that, again, likely the front runner, I would say, in their division to win a state title. And this is why. So when they play teams that are in their division, they are so battle tested and they are so difficult to beat. And we'll see if Lafayette Renaissance can, bounces back from this one, but also that, Lafayette Christian Knights team just continues to chug along and take on whatever's coming next.
Yeah, it's extremely impressive start to the season. I say start to the season now. It's been an impressive season for them. One thing that stood out about this game, too, is Caden Bellard, the running back for LCA. He only rushed for 28 yards. That if you tell a defensive coach going into this game with all the weapons that they have, we've kind of pinpointed him as the guy that makes it go. You're going to hold him to 28 yards. You're going to like your chances. But if they can win and he only gets 28 yards, watch out. Watch out. They have a game next week that's going to be sneaky good. They go to Notre Dame. That game, it's a district game. That's they're not overlooking Notre Dame by any stretch, but Notre Dame can be physical. They're going to have a plan to try to slow them down. So that's going to be an interesting one next week. Elsewhere, we'll go down to Thibodaux and Hahnville for no other reason other than the play that happened at the end of this game. It was before we get into it, Jason, you mentioned it earlier. This is not to bash officials. It's like these calls happen. Like I wouldn't want to do it. It is an extremely hard job to do. We respect everything they do. There was a call at the end of this game that changed the game. Thibodaux's driving down 7 with the football, going in to score, catch a pass over the middle. The ball gets, Hahnville had the football going down to score, up 7. Thibodaux on defense needs a stop. They make a play. They has a big hit over the middle. The guy put his helmet on what looked like was the football. Football jumps in the air. They catch it, and Thibodaux, I think they scored on a play to tie it up. And it was overturned for targeting. And then Hahnville ends up going on to win 34-20.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, but I think and there's a reason why there's a referee shortage as well. This is a very difficult job to do. There's a reason why there's so many games being played on Thursdays, guys. It's by necessity. There are not enough officials in the state of Louisiana So, it's the nature of the beast. It's unfortunate that happened because, Lowell Narcisse, head coach at Thibodeau, first time in a while that I can think of off the top of my head, Thibodeau was undefeated up to this point. Palmville under Coach Bourne has really done a solid job. Again, this is his second year as head coach under the program, and they've looked really impressive turning it around. It's unfortunate that that's the thing that's going to be highlighted with this game because that is a quality win for this Palmville team moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a shame. And again, it's one of those things that happens. You hope it doesn't happen at the end to determine a game. And here it kind of seemed like it did. The last one we'll hit on, and then we can kind of bounce around. We got a few others to touch on, but the last one I'd like to bring up is East Ascension and Prairieville. Prairieville, this is their second year in varsity football, and we texted about it when we saw the score roll through. It's got to be the biggest win in their program's history, and it wasn't just a win where they snuck by. They were up a couple of scores, I think 31-13 at one point on East Ascension, who's a good football team. But man, this is I say young in the years they've been playing football at Prairieville, young program. This is a huge win for that program, and it's one that that area with St. Amant, East Ascension, those teams, they don't want to see Prairieville get many wins like this.
Yeah, you have to wonder if East Ascension just didn't come ready to play this week. That's what it feels like. I mean, we know East Ascension has a really good coaching staff. They got a talented group, physical offensive line. They've had a great season. They were 4-1 coming into this. This one doesn't really make a lot of sense. But we also know that there's a lot of rivalry out there. You talked about it on one of our previous episodes. These schools, they don't really seem to like each other a whole lot. They dispute some of their zonings and things like that with their enrollments and all. So, when you never know what kind of motivation Prairieville came into this game with. And then, it just feels like one that EA probably just didn't quite know the fight that they were getting into on the road at Prairieville.
I watched the full game, guys. Skylar Kelly at quarterback for Prairieville looked really impressive. He really mobile guy, hit a big pass before. I think it was a 50-plus yard touchdown at one point, and he looked really good in there. But you guys mentioned it, like they made some mistakes too. Like they had opportunities to score more points and didn't. So I think Prairieville getting their third win of the season, guys. This tops their total in program history of 2 last year. So this is a big win for them. And this is an East Ascension team that I've been very high on. I'm really impressed with this Prairieville team to get that win at home.
Yeah, no, extremely, extremely impressive. And yeah, it's got to be a situation where EA, for whatever reason, just didn't come out ready to go. And it's something they can learn from. They can learn from that moving forward. I will touch on one other game. This could be our obligatory mention Carr segment of the show. Carr beats Brother Martin 48-13. I mean, there's not much more that we can say about this Carr team. One thing that stood out is this Brother Martin team is really good. This Brother Martin program is really good. Coach Bonisa and those guys know exactly what they're doing. They compete. They played for a state championship a few years back. They're in the semifinals year in and year out. His quote after playing Carr was he was proud that his kids battled for 48 minutes. And I think that shows the domination and how good Carr is. When you have a program like Brother Martin and a coach like Coach Bonise, hey, our kids played hard for 48 minutes. That was what kind of stood out for me.
Yeah. Easton Royal still came out with the biggest play of the night.
The highlight of the night.
Unbelievable one-handed play. Probably of the season, maybe. It was unbelievable.
Yes.
The only unfortunate part of the highlight is that you can't help but to see the score at the bottom where everyone's losing 48-7. So kind of, puts a little bit of a damper on it. But, yeah, he still came away with an unbelievable play. But, yeah, everything you said, Cass, completely agree.
I got BK Jones was calling that game. Shout out to VK with the Hash It Out show. Good people over there. But, yeah, you know what, guys, it ended up being the number 2 on the You Got Moss segment as well.
Oh, really? I missed that.
Yeah, that was the number 2 play. So,
so we get a pair of gloves with Randy Moss on it, right? Isn't that what they?
But look, man, this Carr team is really good. Nothing more can really add to it. Trying to get to a few more games, but Carr's really good. Brother Martin's a quality opponent.
Yeah.
Still sitting at 1-2. And that speaks to the strength of the Catholic League. This is a good Brother Martin team, and they still have 2 losses up to this point. And nearly could have had 3. They had needed a game-winning field goal to beat Jesuit. So Catholic League is really tough. It's the NFL of – people call it the SEC, but it's the NFL, SEC, whatever you want to call it. You have to earn every single win week in, week out. And that's just how it works there.
Yep. Any other games you want to touch on, Jason? I know we got a Grand Lake in there somewhere. We got the Dragons of Mangum.
I'm gonna let Lance go because I know there's one that's up to Lance. He wants to talk about Rommel.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I was just saying Rommel seems like the hottest team in the league. You know, they're another one that played a really tough pre-district schedule. But man, all of a sudden, they came out and they beat up Brother Martin 2 weeks ago. This week they beat up Easton by a bunch, and so. You know, it looks like they're playing great football. It also speaks to, I think, the matchup. I think the reason why they dominated both of those teams is probably for the same reason when you think about, you know, Brother Martin's strength and Easton's strength, really talented offensive skills. Rommel has the defensive skills on the perimeter to match up in a way that not many high school football teams are blessed to have. So, yeah, Rommel, they're going to be dangerous. There'll be a fun matchup to see with Carr as well.
That's going to be a fun one next week. Before they got Carr week 10, they got St. Aug next week. And
yeah, it's going to be a really good one. Yep.
To see those defensive backs and those skill guys, like you mentioned, against a St. Aug offense that's going to be explosive, that is going to be a fun football game. We're almost 3 points away from being undefeated, too. Watch out. As long as they wear red, you just got to no baby
blue. Don't wear baby
blue
blue next week. Yep. Very important.
It looks great, but let's save it.
Picture day.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you know, if I don't get the report on my phone from one of y'all when on Friday, I'm gonna be very disappointed. So I'm gonna be a little bit MIA this week. I got some life things going on.
We got some big stuff going on for you. Yeah.
If I don't get a jersey color report, I'm gonna be angry with both of you guys.
Don't worry.
But look, y'all, I think there's some teams that deserve mentioning. You know, North. Of course, I forgot to put the score. But North Iberville won in a tight matchup on St. John's. It was 50-44 in favor of North Iberville. Look, man, BJ Melanson for this team had 3 touchdowns and interception, 2 receiving, 1 rushing. He is a playmaker, guys. That whole North Iberville offense is full of playmakers. When you're talking Division IV non-select, North Iberville is ranked number 1 in the power rankings, and they're there for a reason. This is a really scary ball club moving forward. I've really been impressed with what they've been able to do, and I think they'll continue doing so. So we'll see how that plays out.
Lots of 2-point conversions in that game.
Yes, well, I think
and an onside kick recovery.
Yes. What else is new, right? A lot of that. There's been a lot of that to go around, but yeah, North Iberville, I think this is a bigger win than what some people might realize for that program. Again, another new program, and they're at 6-0 at this point. So really impressive win for them. Mangum and Faraday in one of the tougher districts. I want to say it's 2A. Shame on me for not knowing. But again, Mangum only lost to Gina up to this point in the year, and that was a massive high-scoring affair. Faraday's biggest. Thank you. 2A. Guys, this there's Oak Grove in there as well.
Yeah.
Like this district is brutal.
Washita Christian's in there too.
I mean, yeah, like this is a really tough district to play in. I would argue probably the toughest 2A district, and every win comes at a premium. The Dragons of Mangum getting the win over Faraday, and Faraday is a really good football team too. Got a lot of playmakers on offense. Desmond Jefferson, a Southeastern commit. There you go, Cass.
There you go. He's got to be really good.
He is, man. He was a 1,000-yard receiver a year ago. Really talented guy. Another one, East Feliciana Slaughter. Again, not a game many people might have had highlighted. East Feliciana 5-1. Slaughter came into this game undefeated. These teams are both kind of again Division IV ball clubs. Both teams have potential. Like I think Slaughter might have expected to be in this spot. I don't know how many people expected East Feliciana to be 5-1 and come into this game against Slaughter and win in a low-scoring game. So hats off to them. And then I'm going to go one more, keeping it these smaller schools. Guys, Westminster Christian in Opelousas finds ways to win. They find ways to win football games. This Opelousas Catholic team is a really talented football team. They got a lot of offensive weapons. This is the second time they've lost a lower scoring football game this season. The other one against Sacred Heart. That's a really tough district to play in as well. But Westminster Christian has really been an impressive team, and a team that's been known for their offense, holding this defense, this Opelousas Catholic team to only 22 points. A really impressive day for them. And I want a correction. Raymond Williams is the back for North Shore in that game. Raymond Williams, $126, 2 touchdowns. Really impressive output on that day, and they scored a game-winning touchdown with 16 seconds left. So
yeah, this was, I think, this score here probably illustrates what we've been talking about on the North Shore football better than any of them. This with Salmon gets a big win last week, and then turns around the following week, loses to a North Shore team. That's 2 impressive wins for North Shore. I know they're 2-4, but 2 impressive wins. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch those teams moving forward.
I was going to add exactly to that district. Slidell beats Fontainebleau, close one there as well, 17-7. Chalmette beat Ponchatoula. That's not actually a district game, but Chalmette won by 40 over Ponchatoula. And so it feels like there's at least 4 teams that could win that East St. Tammany district. So it's really interesting. And one I wanted to point out that popped off the screen to me a little bit was Acadiana beat Barb 49-42. If y'all know, Acadiana, they're starting to get back on track, right? I know they started 0-3. Yeah. What's their record now?
They are now 3-3. They've won 3 in a row.
Yeah, and so, look, they got
getting back on track.
I think they got a player that was expected to not play throughout the season, so I think that's helped as well. But yeah, Barb is in a really explosive offense.
Well, that's it's impressive for Acadiana.
Really offense.
Acadiana won their previous 2 games 61-0, 63-0.
Yep.
And now they're putting up. Yeah, it looks like they might have just needed their district to come just to kind of, get back on track and see. But that's going to be a scary team. If you look up and that's going to be a 17, 18, 19 seed in the playoffs, no bueno.
There's a lot of that, y'all. There's a lot of that going to happen.
I guess they all can't be 16 or 17 seeds, right?
But look, one more game I do want to mention: Madison Prep over Southern Lab. 5-1 Madison Prep, 3-3 Southern Lab. Guys, Madison Prep had to pull away late in this game. And this is a team that I think many would say this is a team that's going to contend for Division II select. So Southern Lab, you always tend to look at their record going into district play like, man, everybody kind of hyped up this team. This is a really good Southern Lab football team. They're just playing absolute ball clubs on the other side of the football field. And for a 1A program, Southern Lab has never been afraid of competition, and that's why they are so competitive in the postseason. But Madison Prep, this team we haven't talked a lot about, but a really top-to-bottom impressive team.
Yeah, Southern Labs. You look at Southern Lab's schedule year in and year out, and you're like, God, what are they doing in this non-district? And then they'll be 6-4, and then they make a trip to the Dome.
They're prepping themselves for the postseason.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I agree with it, but it's crazy. Yeah. Crazy to see. It's crazy to see. Speaking of crazy to see, we'll end with Livingston Collegiate. And this was from a reliable Twitter follow that I saw. So like details scarce. I don't know what happened on the backside of this, but Livingston Collegiate was scheduled to play South Plaquemine. That's at the toe of Louisiana, all the way down to Plaquemine Parish. Livingston Collegiate is from New Orleans. They showed up at Plaquemine, north of Baton Rouge, to play the game on Friday night. And I'm laughing because it wasn't us, so we didn't do it. But the scheduling part of coaching it's both a headache. It's difficult. I get it. It's all crazy. But we went 2 hours out of the way, one way. And apparently they still play the game.
Yeah, I saw a tweet that responded that said they showed up around 7:35. So I guess they pulled up at 5 o'clock, which makes sense. Immediately turned the bus around, drove two and a half hours the other way. So these kids were on a bus. They could have gone
for
to
4 hours.
Wait, that was week 5 though.
It was 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And look, they still competed. South Black won 16-6.
Well, how do you win a game after doing that?
Shout out to those kids.
That bus had to be coming in hot. But what was
flag,
I want to know what Plaquemines' reaction was. Like they're like warming up, getting ready for a game against I don't know who they were playing, and then a third team shows up.
Who did Livingston prepare for? Did they prepare for Plaquemine or South Black? That's the biggest question. Who were they prepared for?
Well, guys, I was telling y'all when I was in high school, it was my brother's senior year. We're playing Faraday, and y'all, I don't know how familiar you are with Faraday, man. They got this massive, like 150 member band, or that's what it felt like. And Coach Monica, the whole I don't know how much y'all talk with Coach Monica, but he's prepping us the whole week. Guys, they're going to come with this massive 150-piece band. They're going to be blaring their horns in your ear. It's going to be tough. So we're playing the game. There's no band in sight. And all of a sudden, like 2 minutes left in the third quarter, they come marching up and blasting their music. Sure enough, they were a loud and really solid band, so much so that we stayed and watched them post-game through their halftime show after the game was over. But, guys, they went to Destrehan. They went to St. Charles Parish, not to St. Charles Catholic. So, apparently this is something that happens occasionally.
Look, I'm telling you,
scheduling. Band, though, guys. Like,
it's for the band, no.
You need a Garmin then. You could even have it on your cell phone,
The scheduling, and I got football's one game a week. So, like, you'd like to think that you talk to the coach, and whatever. It happens. It happens. That's a funny story. But the fact that they went down and they still went to the game and lost 16-8, that's impressive. It's impressive. That's hilarious. Yeah. You should have just drove to, like Lance said, you should have just went to Destin and played somebody over there. But what a show. That was fun. We've got the district races are starting to heat up, especially in some of these districts that are competitive. It's fun to follow. If y'all are watching still, we appreciate it. We have a whole lot of fun doing this. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter. It's where you can find most of our information and our content. But we appreciate y'all staying on here. We'll have our show looking ahead to another week 7 on Tuesday. Well, actually, it'll be out on Tuesday night. I know, Jason, you got a big week. Good luck with everything, man. Go get them.
Yeah. I think we're gonna record tomorrow.
We'll record.
And then we're gonna put it live on Tuesday.
Put it live on Tuesday. Yep. So you can still find us 8:05 on Tuesday night, but it will be recorded from tomorrow night. For Lance, Jason, I am Cass. I appreciate it. This is Talking Ball, y'all. We will see y'all on Tuesday night.